Hey guys, so today you and I are going to talk about breakfast. So let's get into it. So the question in question was, Frederick, does the phrase culture eats strategy for breakfast hold true for technology companies? I'm gonna be honest with you, I've never heard that phrase before, but I would say that it's the sounds like a slogan. It sounds like the sort of thing someone says because they want people to get their eyes open to the idea that the way that people sort of connect with each other is more important than like having a general strategy. And I can agree to a certain point that it is very important that people have a desire to collaborate, because the it's always a balancing act, I will argue. And it's hard to say how we define these sorts of things, but just hear me out when I say that you can't really ever reduce things down to that culture is more important than strategy or strategy is more important than culture, because guys, there are, like, the military manages to get people through life and death combat on based on tactics and strategies, and sure, absolutely, quote unquote, culture or like team dynamics will have a big effect on how well the soldiers do, but you don't have to love each other to actually to execute the mission, if that makes sense. And on the other side, I mean, you don't really have to have a strong business strategy to run a daycare center. In compare, like, if you're going to optimize for something there, it's probably good to have the culture there so that the kids enjoy being there and the parents love the place, etc., etc. You can absolutely have a strategy, but it might not be so important. So it's, to me, these are ways of sort of trying. It's really just a reflection of the value system of whoever is making the pitch or who's making the slogan. And it's likely someone on stage somewhere or in a podcast or on LinkedIn or something who's like incidentally written an article about this thing, and they are available for hire, or they have some other content that they want to pitch, so forth. They're usually a thought leader, and the reality is that most of these people who come with these sorts of statements, they are usually trying to highlight that something is important. And this is where I usually feel like I often roll my eyes a little bit about claims like this, because usually these are very obvious things to anybody who is rational, and usually it's not so complicated to figure out that the thing that actually matters above all else to the average IT company, or like to any company basically, is the output. Like, what is the results? What are the results of what you do? And the only people who think this way, in my opinion at the very least, they are the religious evangelists. These are people who usually they're not rational, and they may, well, are not always not rational, but they're usually not the people. They are the people who will chant a mantra as a solution to a problem, and they will fight hard for their beliefs. But beliefs only gets you so far, because beliefs is not going to fix the fact that you have incompetent coworkers, or a poorly designed architecture, or a misalignment between technical specifications between systems, so they can't really talk to each other in a sufficient way, or a poor security profile. You can fluff as much as you want, you can talk about culture all you want. The people who are executing, the people with their fingers on the keyboards doing all the work, these are the people who are making the difference. And if they don't know what they're doing, no culture in the world is going to save you. On the other hand, you can have the best technical specification in the world. You can basically write most of the code for people, and if they are not so interested in following along, or they're doing a poor job, or they don't feel like it, there's a bad office culture, then it doesn't matter if you have a good technical specification, because as soon as they need to collaborate with somebody else, they don't get help when they need to get help. They don't want to contribute or make meaningful suggestions, etc., etc., and they reduce down your entire work process to like, what do I have to do, and can I get away with not doing it? And these things happen when you are extreme in one way or the other, but any rational person will know, in my opinion at the very least, that these are usually not the extremes that you deal with. You usually have a decent working strategy for something, otherwise your company would go under. And you usually have a decent enough culture in some fashion. You can absolutely have poisonous work environments, you can have poor strategy, you can have all these things. These are very common things. I am 100% transparent with that this is a very common problem. But we have to sort of be honest about what sounds idealistic and what's actually true. And the truth is that you can't have just a nice office culture. That's not going to work. You need competent people who know what they're doing, and they have a shared vision of how to actually achieve the goals that they have. Because if they are not working together, well, there's no strategy or anything like that, then you might get something out of them, but you're basically hoping that they themselves individually will figure out how to collaborate and work together. And maybe that's what you want to bet on, and that's absolutely fine if you have the right people. But as I like to say to, I've said this to a few managers of mine, if you don't know who you're hiring and you don't know what you want as an organization, you don't know what you want to achieve, and you have no way of actually checking whether or not we are moving in the right direction, you're basically just throwing coins into a wishing well and hoping that you're gonna hire the right people who are gonna figure that out for you. And sure, if you are extraordinarily lucky, that's gonna happen. But that usually doesn't have the likelihood of that happening consistently is almost nothing. If you hire 100 people, you might find a few of them who have the sort of ambitions and drive and knowledge and all these sorts of things that need to align in order for them to make a really meaningful contribution to your company. And they're not alone. That's not a sustainable strategy. That's it's chance. That's basically what you're betting on. So what I want you to take away from this is that I don't really think that you can ever say that something like culture eats strategy for breakfast or so forth, because fundamentally it comes down to what you mean by it. Culture is important, yeah, but strategy is also important. Education is important. Like having competent coworkers is important. Having the budget is important. Like there's a million things that are important to an IT company and the things that needs to work. And I can tell you that there is a very complicated mix of a lot of the stuff that needs to take place in order for something to work efficiently. And when you're lacking in one or the other, that's usually when the slogan people can come in and try to promote their ideas and so forth. And usually, I'm not saying that having the idea that culture is like the more important than strategy, that's necessarily wrong. I'm saying that if you reduce down a complicated set of properties that or a complicated set of attributes down to just one thing, you're basically just focusing on something that may or may not matter. As I said with the military, you don't have to go to war with your best friends to win. You can still win. Just as a sports team, like these football players that are paid millions and millions, do you think that they all love each other? All of them? Maybe they do. Or maybe it's just that the combination of that they think that, hey, it works well, I can trust these people, I understand how to interact with this group, and I'm pretty good at my job, and we have a decent coach, and we have a decent strategy for how to win this thing, and we've been training hard. All of these factors matter if you're going to reach those results. And results trump all culture, it trumps all strategy. So that's my 2 cents on the matter. Never reduce something that as complicated as getting results down to just one slogan, because then you're usually dealing with someone who doesn't actually know how to get the results. Have a great day.